Good morning, everyone. I apologize that we are starting a bit late, but it's better late than never. And I think we'll try to catch up with the program as we progress during the day. So I'll try to be as brief as I can in my remarks. So the CS Environment, the Honorable Soipan Toya, the Chair of the Council of Governors, and our good friend Anne Waiguru, she also is the doubles up as the governor of Kirinyaga. We have the CEO of Safaricom. We have the CEOs of Equity. We have CEOs from different parts of the country and the country. We also have the representative of OKDN here with us, and many other distinguished guests. We have diplomats. We have also the participants and also the panelists from across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure on behalf of Nation Media Group to welcome you to the 4th edition of the Kusi Ideas Festival. The Nation Media Group founded this festival in 2019 to do mainly 3 things. The first one was to imagine an Africa and prepare us better to overcome the challenges and exploit its opportunities. And the second reason we started Kusi was to catalyze Pan-African conversations and ideas that help to make the best of Africa today and generate actions to deal with its pressing problems. And finally, one of the things we had in mind when we started Kusi was to contribute in finding and defining our continent's place in the world and present its best face there in the international community. So the theme today will be trying to address some of those key objectives that we started when we started Kusi. I think it would be fair to ask ourselves, how well we have done in the last 4 years. But I don't think it would be good manners to try and be the best judges on how well we have done. But results of what we have done, I think we can give ourselves a decent passing grade. I think we've done quite well. And I'll say why. Our inaugural Ideas Festival the first one was in Kigali in 2019. Physically and online, we had tens of thousands of participants, and some of the novel ideas that came out there that we call moonshots have reverberated across many forums since then, and people have actually put them to some good use. Among the many we have seen, the thoughtful conversations on open skies in Africa become a reality. And in a few days ago, 17 African countries agreed to pilot the Single African Air Transport Market, SAATM. These countries included actually Kenya. They included countries like Ghana, Morocco, Mozambique, Nigeria, just to mention a few. But there were those many countries that decided to set up these things. That was an idea that was actually born in that particular, first Kusi conference. And therefore, we are very pleased to see that some of those ideas that come from this forum actually then get continental attention. At that particular point in time, some of the ideas that we couldn't understand about, perhaps because this was mooted during the first conference, how we could, using digital assets, we could monetize, digital assets, particularly in the area of art. But we have seen that, in fact, that has become a reality in the form of non-fungible tokens that African artists have exploited to very good use. So I think another good reason, to say some of these ideas that come actually then do get translated into reality. For the second Kusi conference in 2020, we opted to have it in Kenya at the Victoria Lakeside of Kisumu because of global COVID-19 lockdown and travel restrictions. It was a mixed virtual and in-person event, and we were delighted to have a few early travelers, people who actually, braved the COVID and traveled. We had some people from South Africa and Rwanda who actually came to participate physically. But apart from that, we also, virtually, we had hundreds of thousands of people who actually participated in that event. I'm glad to report that a lot of the thinking about Africa COVID strategy and collaboration on securing and distribution of vaccines became the mainstay of the Africa CDC, African Union-led approach. Again, where you find that the thought leaders that came, the panelists that contributed there, actually did come up with very, very good ideas as to how Africa could handle that whole issue about the COVID. And you'll all remember how discriminated Africa was, particularly when it came to accessing the COVID-19 vaccines. In 2021, we ventured further afield to Accra, the capital of Ghana, and I think, Anne, you joined us there. We are very delighted you were there with us at that particular point in time, the capital of Ghana. And we reached out to more than 17,000 virtual participants, which actually speaks to the fact that this festival is actually gaining ground and traction across the world. And what was even more interesting is that we had people from over 400 cities worldwide in 72 countries actually tuning in at one point or the other. So this has now become actually a global gathering where those kind of ideas like what we're going to be discussing today is actually discussed. On this one, I would like to note the idea of embedding climate change evaluations in financing and green standards in permits was discussed at length in that particular meeting. And I'm very glad the COVID-27 that we just held in Egypt actually talked to a lot of some of those ideas which were being mooted then, just long before the COP27 came into being. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been possible because of our panelists. We have always been fortunate to attract knowledgeable and experts, resources who work passionately on African issues. At this fourth festival, you have honored our invitation and come in even larger numbers. And I want to tell you how much we value you, and we are looking forward to actually using and drinking from your wisdom. Thank you so much, the panelists from wherever you are across the world. You enrich this festival very, very much. This year, we are here in Karura to highlight its status as a monumental symbol of victory for an intense environmental struggle in the 1990s in Kenya. It is a perfect backdrop to the question of the climate change crisis that we face today. Sadly, it is also a reminder of one of the stark realities of one of the themes this festival will tackle, the spectre disease caused by changing climate. This festival was initially set to be held in lakeside town of Entebbe, but we had to change that because of the breakdown of Ebola, and we couldn't deal with some of those challenges that came. But it's our hope that in the fullness of time, we will hold another Kusi there. With a different set of circumstances, perhaps we could not be celebrating here we are today, because some of you may not remember or even recognize that Karura in the 1990s had been allocated to private developers. And if it wasn't for people like Wangari Maathai, the renowned Nobel Peace Prize, who actually fought tooth and nail, and some people actually did lose their lives here, perhaps Karura, where we are standing today, would have been a place of skyscrapers, okay? Every single inch of Karura forest had been allocated to so-called private developers. I think I'm very proud to say that the Nation Media Group answered the call of duty and offered its muscle to bolster the campaign to save Karura. And I must say this is something that we did with a lot of passion, with a lot of challenges as a media house, because the government of that particular point in day, they thought we were just being difficult, we were just being anti-government, but we felt that at that particular point in time, Karura needs to be saved. And I'm very happy when I come here on Sundays to see thousands of people coming here with their families just to enjoy the ambience and the Karura forest that offers. So I think it is very, very important. And this is something that I say, as Nation Media Group, we have been very proud because we have been consistent advocates of environment for the last 35 years. And I must say that, in fact, and this is something that we'll continue to do, because when you look at the acres of space that we dedicate in our newspapers, on our radio, on our television, on our various media platforms. Nation Media Group every year spends millions and millions of shillings in terms of advancing the climate change agenda, and I promise that we'll continue to do this. We call upon all the partners who are here to join us in the endeavor of creating value and empowering our society. We estimate that the monetary value of what we are trying to do here, because, and the impact that we'll have if we all put together, will be running into millions and billions of shillings. Yet, nothing in history would have prepared us for the climate change existential crisis we face today, and which makes it an urgent subject for our conversation over these next 2 days. Climate change is a reason for Africa to come together. Our shared lakes and rivers are either overflowing and causing disastrous floods, or drying out and plunging tens of millions of our people into hunger. I think it was only yesterday I was reading an article in the newspaper that said over 2 million kids in Kenya are either going to drop out of primary school because they cannot feed themselves. And the projections was that even by January next year, as many as 3 million kids may not go back to school. And this is really sad, because when our youth at that particular point in time, they lose an opportunity in education, then what kind of future do they have? And this is why I think us as parents, as grandparents, as anybody, or even in the corporate world, we need to worry about the effects of the climate change because of the devastating effect it has on all of us. It is very heartening to understand that, in particular, even when you look at even further afield in the Horn of Africa, which includes Kenya, we hear that about 15 million are facing starvation. For how long is Africa going to go through this cycle of famine year in, year out? Because I'm reminded in 1990 when I went to Turkana with the late Archbishop Mwanawanzeki, because Turkana was also going through the similar situation we are facing today. That is nearly 30 years ago, and we're still going through this. Ladies and gentlemen, for how long is Africa going to go through this? I know in COP27, a lot of resolutions were passed through there, but we cannot wait for the Western world or the people who pollute our countries to come to our aid. It is us to have that conversation as Africans, what it is that we can do to make a change. And it's the responsibility of each and every one to say, what is it that I can do? What impact can I have to try to reverse this whole issue of climate change? I'm particularly delighted to see that the new government of President William Ruto has actually started walking the talk, because the recent directive that he has given that for every occasion that where he is present or his ministers are present, they need to plant at least a minimum of 200 trees. That is a step in the right direction, and we really fully support it. Because it's not just a question of just talking and not doing anything, it's actually doing something. And I'm very happy to say, Madam CS, that you set the trail here by saying, before I come to this conference, I want to do the walk to the talk, and we actually have planted a few trees today. So thank you very much, Madam CS, for this, and please convey our gratitude to the President and also to encourage him to continue on this, and we look forward to that partnership. This is how we are going to win the battles to save our planet from irreparable damage by climate change. However, winning the war will need more, and the work of all of us as Kenyans, as Africans, and in fact as global citizens, we all need to do a little bit more. Through this, though this is a worthy journey, it would be an easy one. And I would be cheating you if I told you that, in fact, the effects of climate change are going to be mitigated immediately. As the African proverb says, there is no shortcut to the top of a palm tree. You know how straight the palm tree is? Yeah? If you want to go to the top of the palm tree, there is no shortcut. So let's understand that there are no shortcuts. The only shortcuts that we can is to actually through action. Our hope is that Crucifor will offer some ideas on how we get there, and build a coalition that pushes us further up on that palm tree. So let us all rally to that cause. Thank you so much and enjoy the day. Thank you. At this juncture, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Prince Rahim. If you can just allow me a moment, because we're going to be watching a video. And if you just allow me 1 second to tell you who Prince Rahim is. It is indeed an honor for me to introduce the Prince Rahim Aga Khan, the eldest son of His Highness the Aga Khan. As you know, His Highness the Aga Khan is the founder of Nation Media Group. And he founded this group in 1959 and to give a voice of Africans to the African. The Nation Media Group is part of the Aga Khan Development Network, a group of institutions designed to create conditions and opportunities to improve the quality of life and engender self-reliance. Over the past 100 years of contribution to East Africa's development, AKDN institutions have become widely known institutions, and among them is Jubilee Insurance, Diamond Trust, Bank, Industrial Promotion Services, Property Development, Nation Media Group, among others. So AKDN is a network that actually has a very wide reach. Today, Prince Rahim is going to speak about the AKDN's commitment to climate protection and adaptation, and the overriding principles that guide the network's climate-related efforts. Early this year, he endorsed the AKDN Environment and Climate Commitment Statement for all AKDN operations across all its agencies, institutions, and programs, including the 175 or so in Kenya. Prince Rahim has been actively involved in the government of in the governance of Aga Khan Development Network, and particularly on the areas of climate change. He is personally committed to building climate resilience in countries and communities that have been adversely affected by environmental degradation and climate change. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are truly honored and privileged to have him join us virtually from Geneva. And please join me in welcoming Prince Rahim Aga Khan. Thank you so much.